Mafia, a video game series known for their incredible stories, characters, and settings, exploring themes such as trust, loyalty, and betrayal. Mafia in 2002, developed by Illusion Softworks, is regarded as one of the best video game stories ever told and shown in a video game. Despite how limited the technology was and narrative or cinematic pieces really starting to become a thing in the medium. It nailed the cutscenes, the atmosphere, and the crime drama that they were going for, but also suffered heavily by having boring driving sections, questionable combat, and lack of facial expressions. And prior to this game coming out, I've always wondered if they ever remake this game for a new audience like me, because I've always wanted to play the original, but couldn't see myself enjoying it because of the jank. Fast forward to 2020, and thanks to Studio Hangar 13, who just recently released their latest title, Mafia: The Old Country, Mafia Definitive Edition was born, a remake designed to bring fans both old and new to the franchise and experience a story that's remained intact aside from a few noticeable changes, which I didn't really learn about until I watched videos on those. Yes, I'm 5 years late to the party and I probably should have played it back then, but I didn't have the PC for it at the time. I could say the same about Old Country, but it's also on Unreal Engine 5. The only reason I'm steering away from it until I upgrade my PC. So what better way to experience the franchise than to start from the very beginning? Better late than never. I'm going to review this as a first time player as opposed to anyone who's played the original to give you that sort of perspective, since there are probably a lot of people who've never played the first Mafia game or even a Mafia game at all. I'll give you some positives and negatives and answer the question of whether or not you should play it. Let's get into it, shall we? It's worth noting that Mafia is composed of three core mechanics or elements: the story, the driving sections, and the gameplay. I don't want to go into too much detail about the game's story as it's definitely something worth experiencing yourself, but I can give a bit of an overview alongside a few of the sections you'll be doing. You play as Tommy Angelo, a cab driver for the city of Lost Heaven, who happens to stumble upon the Mafia as a result of two guys making a run from some sort of criminal activity, which you happily drive them to safety and back to a restaurant, which also happens to be the safe house of Don Salieri, one of the game's main characters. The story is told from two different perspectives, majority of it being from the past during Tommy's time in the Mafia, and the other being in the present as Tommy has run out of options and talks to Detective Norman in a bidding attempt to secure his family's safety and get him into witness protection. You'll start off as a foot soldier in Salieri's family once you get done smashing up some cars in justice for your own taxi car being smashed, then work your way to more interesting jobs and eventually become a made man. I'll just give it to you straight. The story is freaking phenomenal, with all 20 levels of the game feeling unique to the point that even though it may seem like you're doing hits, protecting people, or doing something entirely different such as a notorious race, every time you're doing that, it's pretty much never the same, from smashing up cars to protecting your soon-to-be missus, getting shot at a known restaurant, and a chase sequence that has you fight the law in their big armored truck. Those two characters I mentioned before, these are Paulie and Sam, and will be the two other main characters you'll be riding with throughout the majority of the game, who you grow to love and appreciate through both cutscenes and car driving moments, where they have these GTA-style conversations and just grow to love one another. Sam being the calm, collected, and straight-to-the-point person, a person who can get very far in that life, and Paulie, the loose cannon who's not so good at thinking on the spot. Paulie was easily my favorite character throughout this entire adventure as he really stood for Tom in a lot of moments and he's just funny as hell. Shout out to the actor who played him. I also forgot to mention another narrative, which is the war between Salieri and his former ally and friend, Morello. It starts off slow at first, but ramps up from an X amount of events and is something worth noting. Thanks to their in-house engine, all characters have been recreated from the ground up and now have proper facial expressions and lip syncing to make the intentional experience that Illusion Softworks wanted to accomplish years ago fully realized, with changes being made to some of the dialogue to further express their emotions since it can now be done through motion capture. However, I did feel that a few missions were a bit too quick, and given that remakes post opportunities to expand and add more details to missions, Hangar 13 could have done that here. For example, moonlighting sees Tommy and Paulie robbing a bank for a big score, but the bank robbery goes so quick that by the time I escaped and I got to the warehouse, I was sad it was over so soon. I just wish it was longer, like having some sort of GTA 4 or Red Dead shootout before eventually getting to a car and driving away. That would have sweetened the deal for me, but given this is one to the original mission, I can't really fault them for this. Same goes for the few other missions that I had problems with as well. The original game had driving sections where you'd go from one place to another to help see the world of Lost Heaven for what it is as a city, while also dodging and escaping cops if you had to. But it was flawed by the sections being so long and the driving itself feeling like crap to where your car slides if you turn for more than 3 seconds. Couple that with this compass they had and lack of a minimap, and it wouldn't surprise me if you just gave up on the game after 15 minutes because of this. In the remake, the driving is massively improved, taking the same system from Mafia 3 to make everything cleaner and smoother, and there's also two driving modes, which are normal and simulation. I played on simulation, which made cars feel heavier, have better physics, and require more precision to handle, especially whenever you're turning or doing drifts, while normal makes all of this easier. I pretty much had to play on simulation because of classic difficulty, and I may as well go over the difficulties now while I'm mentioning it. Mafia Definitive Edition has 4 difficulties, with easy, normal, and hard changing how aggressive enemies can be, how much damage they do, police responding to more crimes, and fewer UI indicators. However, the 4th difficulty is Classic, a difficulty that's designed to emulate the feel of the original Mafia game and is what I decided to play for my first playthrough because I wanted that experience. And also because of the achievement. Whenever I see games with difficulty achievements, I'm inclined to go for them, no ifs or buts. Aim assist is disabled, not that it matters in mouse and keyboard anyway, and health regeneration gets limited to 20%, so you'll be spending more time taking it slow and being patient rather than getting into the enemy's face, which makes sense. The one cool change I found interesting but took a bit of getting used to is that reloading your gun at any point in the clip discards the remaining ammo for it. So if you reload a pistol with 5 bullets for example, you'll lose those 5 bullets and it won't go to your reserves. Having that Call of Duty mindset, you can see why this was a bit of a struggle for me, but nothing too game changing once you get that down. Outside of that stupid race, which took me about an hour or so because you have to be almost picture perfect or hope that the AI just shits the bed and you're able to sweep by them, I never found it to be too difficult and most of the times I died was because of me, not the game or its AI. So I'd say it's pretty balanced for the most part. There is an option that you can turn on which lets you skip the long drive so you can get straight to your destination, and while it's optional, I strongly recommend to keep that off and drive to your destinations as the card dialogue I mentioned before really helps to give characters more development and really see Lost Heaven for the city it is, despite it being this canvas that it paints itself as when it comes to the story. Mafia Definitive Edition's combat is serviceable at best. It's a third-person cover shooter and I think they just took Mafia 3's combat and brought it to this game, which isn't a bad thing, but given how meh it was in that game, it still feels the same here. Gunshots sound light, nothing feels punchy, and the weapons on offer feel very limited, even though I solely relied on my trusty 1911 pistol and the Tommy gun if I had an opportunity to use it. Majority of the time I just used my 1911 because even with Bloom being a thing, it was more accurate and I had to kill people fast given the difficulty I was on. So that or the revolver got the job done just fine. The car chases in this game are spectacular though. I really enjoyed every single one that showed up and while it ain't no Uncharted style set pieces, they suited the area extremely well. There's throwables such as grenades and molotovs and health packs in between sections of levels, as well as plenty of checkpoints so you won't miss much if you die. Not really much to say here like I normally would in most of my videos as the game is story first, gameplay second, but that is the best way I can describe it. If you're enjoying the video so far, consider liking and subscribing with notifications turned on. For those who are new, I'm Pepsilk and I make all kinds of gaming videos, from reviews to memes and anything that I find of interest. Any support is appreciated and I thank you for being here. I just want to take a moment to praise Hangar 13 for how faithfully it has done the world of Lost Heaven. From the different buildings to the civilians, the clothing, the architecture, and the roads. I'm sure Illusion Softworks would have been proud to see the world they created come to life. The game is honestly often stunning at times, and I also love how they embedded both real songs from the 1930s as well as the broadcasts, especially when the reporter talks about the events that just happened, which are from the results of your actions. Truly remarkable stuff. Despite the Lost Heaven glaze, I will admit that even on the highest settings and making use of their proprietary engine, the game can look a bit off and not perfect at times. The reflections are what turned me off the most because they can often look glossy and a bit overtuned, particularly on the cars. I noticed it a good amount of times when I was driving cars and I just stop and look to see if my eyes were deceiving me. It's not all bad and dandy though, as there's really well done lighting and rain effects, especially during the nighttime, and the interiors are pretty solid. Part of me wishes that they did this with Mafia 2 instead of just upscaling the textures and calling it a definitive edition, but we can't have everything. Just don't expect something that's gonna wow you out of this world. Man, the OST of this game is so good. Not to where I can remember tracks off the top of my head, but just to a point where they nailed the settings so well. It was just right. That theme song may be stuck in my head for a minute though. I wanted to give credit to something really small that only I may have noticed, but if you go into the map and just listen to the ambience for a moment, you'll hear a few things. Gunshots, people screaming, and the police sirens going off. I know this may just be ambience, but little things like this help to emphasize the organized crime life that these guys lived, and I thought this was perfect. If you're a completionist or just like to collect things, I'm happy to inform you that there's cigarette cards, magazines, and cards to collect, which can be done in either the story mode or the game's free roam mode, which isn't anything too fancy other than just driving around the city of Lost Heaven and doing some side missions. Never really dug into the free roam mode shortly after finishing the game, but worth noting. The game ran pretty solid for me for the most part, although I had two game crashes and an audio bug where I couldn't hear this one cutscene's dialogue or music at all. It ended up fixing itself shortly after. You shouldn't have too much of a problem running the game on max settings, but if you do plan to adjust some settings, I highly recommend to leave the textures on high as the game looks a lot uglier with it down. Mafia Definitive Edition is an excellent remake and should be considered alongside other great remakes. The gameplay may be lacking and the driving sections may still be boring, albeit you do have an option to skip those. But what you have here is one of the best video game narratives ever written that's been expanded to further bring Illusion Softworks' vision to life. I didn't realize how big of a deal this game was until I saw the 72,000 reviews that were given on Steam. Really goes to show how good remakes can be for both the player and the developer when love and attention gets poured into it. For a first time playthrough, you're looking at 9 to 12 hours to complete it from start to finish, which is average for these games. And the game's current price may appear pricey to some, so I recommend waiting for a sale. It usually goes on sale for about 80 to 85% off, at least on PC. I'm not so sure about consoles. But yeah man, this is just a solid game and I'm glad to have experienced it. It made me ask a lot of questions and shows just how far you can get in this life, as well as the things that people can do to bring you down. If you made it to the end of the video, thanks for watching. If I missed anything, comment down below. I'll have more coming to you soon. Peace.